it was a wild place to be. The perception that you could pay your way out of any situation has changed dramatically.
Meet Simon, a Brit who first came to Thailand in 1991. He married to a Thai wife and has lived here for over 25 years with an 8-year break in Singapore. Simon shared what foreigners often misunderstand about Thailand, how to build friendships with Thai people as a foreigner, and the biggest difference between Thailand and Singapore. I'm Max Chernov, your insider to Expat Life. Bye, Kanta.
What's the best thing about living in Thailand for you in Thai language?
สิ่งที่ชอบที่มากที่สุดอยู่ในประเทศไทยน่าจะการเที่ยวทางจังหวัดขี่มอเตอร์ไซค์ทางจังหวัดความอิสระความสวยของที่การกินของแปลกประมาณนี้นะครับ
Okay, what was it? What did you say?
I said the freedom of riding around Thailand on a motorcycle, meeting different people and eating strange foods. I've always found that Thai people are very approachable, very easy to deal with. If you're not doing business and you're just chatting, it's one of the easiest places I've been to.
Because people are open and friendly.
They are open and friendly.
What do you think people like who've never been to Thailand don't get about Thailand? Or maybe who just come for like vacation Phuket, they don't understand about the country?
I think there are several things. How to eat. I think the local restaurants don't do a good job of explaining how to eat Thai food. Thai food is communal food. It breaks down into two distinct groups.
Okay.
There's single dish food like pad krapao or pad thai or a fried rice or any of those things. And then there's the generic name for everything else is called with rice. Everything else is called with rice. There's a subset of that which is like pour over rice, right? But basically it's with rice. If you eat with rice food without rice, it's referred to as play eating. It's not considered seriously eating, right? Which I think is great because that one of the reasons I really enjoy speaking and listening to Thai is that Thai people can't express themselves in a way that is truly reflective of their emotions and their feelings and their, culture in a foreign language. Very few people can do that in a second tongue, right? You can in English because your English is a second language to you. But most people can't, and Thai people are not particularly good at English, and they struggle with that. But if you can speak good Thai, or even just listen to Thai well, you can let them do their thing, and you can learn from that, right? Both the content that they say and the inference that they make, right, and the emotions that they inject, because it's their language and they can get behind it. This is the temple school, by the way. A backbone of the Thai education system.
Actually, like no gates, no walls.
No security.
No security.
No metal detector to check whether you've got a gun on you. Because that shit doesn't happen here. Even though they have really, really high gun ownership and one of the highest prison populations in the world. So the US has the highest percentage of people in incarceration. Thailand is in the top 5. And yet there's no security.
For you, like personally, do you feel safe here? Like for you and your wife?
My wife's a different thing because she's Thai. She picks up on a slightly different vibe from me. She has this sort of historic view of Thailand being dangerous. Whereas as a guy who, when I first arrived here, pulled out onto Sukhumvit Road walking and I could see to the horizon because no one was taller than me, right? Now, Thais have changed their diet and they've grown and I'm just a short old man with no hair. But in the old days, I was like, not the biggest guy in town, but I was up there. So I never really felt scared.
I guess your wife, she also like kind of understand the context. Like for me, if I go to Russia and I see the faces, I immediately can recognize if this person can be potentially dangerous or not. But her probably as well. For you as a foreigner in Thailand, especially like tall, white dude, is like, okay, kind of no problem, I guess.
Right. Thailand used to be a place where single men would come to have fun and married men would come to get divorced. The divorce rate at the embassies was over 60% back in the 80s and 90s. People will come over. I mean, I'm one of those. I wasn't married, but we broke up while we were here. It was a wild place to be, right? The perception that you could do anything, the perception that you could pay your way out of any situation, a new Wild West frontier, so to speak. And it's changed dramatically. My understanding is the majority of arrivals into Thailand are not single men. They're married couples or dating couples, families and groups that come. So it's changed. There's a lot to Thailand which is thoroughly modern, more modern than many other cities on the planet. There is a perception that Thailand is still a third world country, even though that term is incorrectly used. Third world is a political affiliation, but it's been, the vernacular has used it as a sort of a development status thing. And it's a little outdated and bigoted to use those terms, but you know, most people do. Thailand is a developing country that has pockets of poverty and underdevelopment with one of the world's most modern cities. It's got patches like we've been walking through that are historic relics of what Thailand was like in the 50s and 60s, but there's also brand new buildings with all the mod cons and everything you could imagine for a very reasonable price usually. I think people don't see the nuance. I think people are, in our hurried lives, I think people are too quick to have a single label that they want to apply, and they don't like the idea of having to think about the subtleties of how a country with nearly 70 million people and an area kind of the size of France is actually not one place. It's many places with many different things. Yeah. Thank you, Khom Krap.
Thank you.
The word that you just heard there, here. So
What was the word?
Here.
Okay.
So there's well, actually I've mispronounced that. Perfect. The Chinese, there are several Chinese words used in Thai for boss man.
Okay.
And here is one of them. But, and you might want to put this on YouTube, but if you want to call someone a cunt, you would call them a here. So you got here and here. And they're impossible to distinguish for foreigners because it's a tone-based thing. It's like when foreigners like to say, oh, you're really beautiful, a lot of them say, your mother has shit luck. And they don't know. And the girl is like grimacing, going, oh, I know what you want to say, but actually, say that again and I'll slap you.
What's specific about relationships, like friend relationship with Thai people? How to make friends with Thai people and how to maintain relationship with them? Is it any different versus other nations, versus Western people, let's say?
Getting drunk with Thai people is an easy pathway to acceptance. Getting plastered is a great way to show that you're not reserved or holding anything back. But in reality, you do need to hold something back. Talking about politics, talking about the royal family, talking about religion. You can't really. Yeah, I love this area. Look at this.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's really cool. There's I don't know if it's still open, but there's a trendy little bar on the corner that does very nice cocktails, and we may end up walking back. But
so yeah, you hold back some topics.
Hold back some topics. Especially when you're new friends, it's easy to overstep the line, but you won't know. You just won't meet them again. Right?
So what would be like offensive for Thai?
What would be offensive for
or something that like no you don't do it.
So having negative opinions about something and voicing a negative opinion about something that you're not sure where the other person sits, quite easy to offend somebody, because if they don't agree with you, they'll take it more personally than somebody in London might do. So I think you have to be sort of reticent with your opinions. It's okay to ask questions about things as long as they're open-ended questions, but showing negativity. And to be honest, I think that's something that I have had moments where I failed spectacularly to control myself. And I've asked questions or made statements that I've worked out either instantly or the next day were beyond the pale and have stressed that relationship. So I would, argue being reticent. One of Thailand's 8,000 cannabis dispensaries.
Because also like Thai people, they are not confrontational. They don't want to confront you.
But they're not until they are. When they are, you're dead.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I heard. So it's true.
And it's
if you get them angry, so they can be really.
Self-restraint is lacking. So once you get them past that point, I was always taught if you're going to have a fight with someone, you put them down and it's over, right? You put someone down, and once they're on the ground, it's over. You don't kick them when they're down. You don't, right? It's done, and best possible outcome is, you say, are we done? Right, we're done, right. Then get up, and you help them get up.
Okay.
Once you hit the deck in Thailand, it means that all the friends that were too scared to jump in will now kick you in the head until you're dead. And it happens quite often, and it's horrible.
Oh, is it? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
With like foreigners, I guess.
Never get into a fight with a Thai, because it's not a one-on-one thing. It's a one on all of his mates.
Yeah.
You do have to be super careful. And yet, on the other hand, I caused an accident when I first got here, and I was driving my girlfriend's Landy, and I caused an accident. The guy came off his motorcycle, avoiding me, and I was shocked. It was that first accident I'd ever been in or created. I was just appalled with myself, and he could see it, and he basically looked at me and said, "Oh shit, are you all right?" And that was it. It was all over. So they can be super forgiving, but there's a line by which, you
don't want to cross.
You know those ratchet wheels with the, right, where it just doesn't go backwards, right? It seems like Thai people are kind of like that.
What's the other, like, maybe hidden things that foreigners don't know, people who don't know Thailand have no idea about?
Multiple facets of face.
Yeah.
It's not just a simple single dimension of it.
Okay.
There's giving somebody face by being respectful to them. There's sort of creating respect through good action. So when a boss goes on holiday somewhere, he comes back with gifts for his staff and hands them out. That's a component of being, being a good leader to his team, and being generous, and maybe buying, working late a couple of nights when it's necessary, kind of thing.
Yeah. So like different level for different shades of face.
I mean, and the sort of the top level. Mina, Mita, Meta, I think is the word, is the sort of face that you can only get through consistently being a good guy and never doing things to take advantage of others. Okay. So if you buy, if you do buy stuff for your staff, but then you expect them to do things, you're not going to be perceived of in the way that people who just give without thought for receipt.
Okay, that's the Thai way. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it this way in Singapore.
No.
Yeah. After 9 years in Singapore, what's the biggest advantages and disadvantages for you living in Singapore and living in Bangkok?
Singapore is designed specifically to live safely, execute business, to do business, travel regionally. If you have a product or a service for which there is a regional market, Singapore is a fantastic place to do it. The infrastructure is fantastic. There's pseudo-legal processes around immigration and work permits, completely transparent, completely quick, and painless. If you're qualified, you get it. If you're not, you get rejected. It's just that simple. However, Singapore is small. If you were to blindfold somebody and dump them in a neighborhood in Singapore, they wouldn't know where they were, because it all looks identical. Whereas here in Thailand, we have regional architectural differences, regional food differences, we have regional accents, and so, it's just more varied. Obviously, I'm not saying that Singapore's not a real country, but it is a little bit small. Thailand is large. We've got, it's 2,000 kilometers long, right? North to south. It's a big ass place. So there's lots to see and do. If you like the sea, there's lots of beaches. If you like the mountains and the jungle, they've got that too. They've got mountains, the jungle less and less. But it's varied and it's easily accessible. There are thousands of inexpensive quality hotels, like we were talking about earlier, new generation, clean, fresh, new, and 600 to 800 baht a night. You can travel around Thailand inexpensively and have fun and not get into trouble and meet lots of people who are friendly and approachable. The Singaporeans are a little less approachable, but they're a lot busier. So, I think they can justify that. But setting up and doing business here, there are lots of requirements that make it onerous. And if you're not the kind of person that likes stress, imposed stress that comes with a badge and a gun, not that the gun ever gets used, but you know what I mean, the authoritative figure, Thailand is not for you. If you like, hospital level cleanliness of the processes and interactions, then Singapore is the place to do it. You might not develop as many deep friendships with locals in Singapore as you do here in Thailand, but that's part of your decision matrix.
How would you compare Thai and Singaporeans? Any other like how society works? Any other like things that you noticed living 9 years in Singapore and like so many years here?
So before we started filming, we were talking about sufficiency economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the phrase "poor pian," which enough already.
Yeah.
So
That's the. Can you say a couple of words about this concept? Because
sure.
I love it.
So it was a economic philosophy that was thought up and promoted by the late king, King Bhumibol Chulalongkorn IX, and it's basically. I mean, I won't do it justice, but the philosophy is that only use and buy and earn what you need, because excess is unnecessary and it takes food off the table for people who haven't got to sufficient yet.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's easy to joke about it because I think a lot of Thai people like to cut corners, and so there's an argument to be made that they're using poor pian as an excuse to do the bare minimum, whether it's homework, studying or work of a general description. But when it comes to food, that doesn't apply. I used to live near Newton Circus, organise a barbecue, and I had Singaporeans say, "Oh, it's a nice for you to invite, but it's too far because I live in Woodlands."
Okay.
Yeah, okay, well, Woodlands is like 15 kilometers away.
Yeah. Woodlands is basically Malaysia.
Yeah, yeah, but that's but that's a false dichotomy because not every country is the size of a postage stamp. So in Thailand, if something to do with food, they'll travel half the length of the country for it. I was doing a network installation in a town just north of Bangkok. It's about, I don't know, an hour's drive from downtown, hour and 20 minutes drive from downtown. And I'd contracted a team of guys to install the cables that the network would run across.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a large sum of money. I think we subcontracted them for 100,000 baht or something. And the foreman said, "All right, let's go for lunch." And we jumped in his car and we drove for 45 minutes.
For some particular place.
For a bowl of noodles. It wasn't a fancy restaurant in the sense that you and I would perceive as being a fancy restaurant. But the food was good, and even back then when I didn't know my butt from my elbow, looking in the car park I could see all the different province names on the number plates. I couldn't read them, but I knew that people had come from 3 or 4 different provinces just to eat at this place. So it was, and there were these tiny bowls of noodles, and there were people with 10 or 12 bowls in front of them. They'd order 2 or 3 at a time, and then order 2 or 3 more, and just keep going until they were full. It was fantastic, but it was an hour and a half there and back.
It's a little bit also Singaporean and Malaysian thing as well. They would drive like, in Singapore it's like maybe not 30, like 40, 50 minutes across the town.
But that was in one loop, right?
Yeah, maybe public transport. Public transport will get to somewhere. In Malaysia they can like easily drive for like 1 hour to get like some particular food. So it also exists this way.
First time I went across the street in Singapore, I walked to a zebra crossing, and I just started walking because the car was like 30, 40 yards away, and my wife just screamed at me. And I turned around in the middle and said, "Honey, we're in Singapore, it's totally different." Right, come on.
And in Thailand, what I realized that going to Thailand, when you cross the road, you need to go with the flow. And also driving here, you kind of go with the flow.
Yeah, and you have to look the wrong way because there'll be somebody riding a motorcycle the wrong direction.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly, yeah.
So
you need to check,
when you get out of a taxi, you have to do the motorcycle check, over your shoulder check. Yeah.
Interestingly, like the topic of traffic pops up already like a few times in our
Right.
chat. I guess it's a big thing here, yeah?
It is.
It's all like around traffic.
Traffic in Bangkok is like the English and weather, right? It's just part of the conversation.
Yeah.
You can't expect people to turn up on time for meetings because of traffic.
Tell me this, the concept that we talked before we start filming.
Seniority stuff.
The seniority stuff and how it translates to the traffic relationships.
Okay, so Thai society is largely based on age. So it's a seniority-based society. The sort of the generic observation that that Asians are more respectful of their seniors and their elders, that sort of thing. In Thai, you refer to anybody who's not your mother or your son, sort of, so to speak, as being elder or younger, using pi and nong as the prefix, right? So you would be nong max, I'm going to guess you're not as old as me. And you, if you were Thai, would call me P. Simon.
P. Simon.
Elder brother Simon. I don't know if it's still true this way or things have changed, but typically, if you go out for a meal, the oldest guy at the table will pay. A lot of people are sharing these days, but maybe traditionally the oldest person would pay, and then when you all go out and there's a new guy who's older than that guy, then that guy would pay.
Yeah.
And there's always significant amounts of deference to the oldest person. Their opinion, their schedule, their preference for where to eat, where to fill up with gas if you're on a motorcycle trip, all of those things, right? You just let the older guy make the decision, and he might bitch about it behind his back, but it's all smiles, at the time. When you're in your car, behind tinted window, no one knows how old you are. No one knows if it's your Mercedes or your boss's Mercedes, and you make 12,000 baht a month as a live-in driver for the family, where you take out dog poop and go and get noodles when they're hungry.
Yeah.
No one knows, but you're driving a Mercedes, and you can leverage that to your advantage. So any pent-up frustrations that you have can easily come out in a situation where it's been depersonalized. So that's why I think that's a component of road rage in Thailand, is the shackles are off and they're free to sort of vent without being constrained by knowing that guy. And once the line has been crossed and you're this close to fisticuffs, then you don't fall back. That might be a loss of face. So you just have to keep going forward.
The lost face thing as well.
Yeah. Thank you. That's a Fortuner. It's the worst car to pick to pull out in front of. When I'm riding my bike up country, the things that I look out for as danger signs
that tailgate you.
are minivans, dilapidated pickups that looks like none of the lights work, either on the car or the driver, and Fortuners. Fortuners, I think they come with a USB that says, how to drive like a butt. So this is called Yawarat, and Pawarat is India town. So there's lots of Indian food, Pakistani food.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Okay, a very important question. Where the food is better, in Thailand or in Singapore?
It's better
It's better, yeah.
here. Singaporean food can be great, but it's, on average, it's a little bit too oily, it's a little bit too greasy. Singaporeans will tell you never drink cold drinks when you're eating food because it congeals the oils in your throat. Well, that's a confession that there is too much oil in the food, right? I would say Thai food is more varied and healthier, and a little bit more punchy and vibrant.
What was your first impressions in 1991? Like, how old were you?
22.
22, so young guy.
Yeah.
But you came with the girl.
I did. So
what is the impression of the place?
My impression of Thailand was it was so totally different. There were some rude awakenings. Early 1990s, the AIDS epidemic was still going off like a frog in a sock.
In Thailand?
Everywhere,
everywhere.
but also here.
Okay.
We stayed in a nice apartment, obviously, embassy provided apartment, taxpayers, thank you very much. And the Thais that lived there were well-to-do, well-educated, well-employed sort of Thais. We were told we weren't allowed to swim in the swimming pool because you can catch AIDS from the swimming pool, and all foreigners have AIDS. So, you know, that was a bit of a shock and a disappointment. That was a rude awakening. I'd never experienced someone being racially bigoted and biased towards me based on anything, let alone based on bad knowledge or ignorance or a lack of understanding. So that was a bit of a shock.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And is this Teens of Thailand? I think this is Teens of Thailand with the really funky door.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
So there's brown sugar. I don't know if that's the original brown sugar that used to be on Lang Suan, which was a really, really good jazz club, jazz and blues club. And then there are all of these little new things, like this guy on the corner. Restaurants and bars that have just cropped up over the last 10 years. And they make these cocktails with lots of local ingredients, so ginger and galangal and chili, of course.
Yeah.
So if you want a spicy cocktail, this is the place to get one.
Are you still Farang, or already kind of not? Like, what do you think your perception?
You tell me. Do I strike you as a Farang?
Like perception of you by local people, because you speak Thai, you localize, you've been here for so many years, but you're still like an alien.
If I'm talking to an immigration officer or a policeman or a customs officer, I'm a foreigner, 100%, no quarter given. Yeah. If I'm in the back of a taxi and complaining about the traffic or the installation of a new traffic light
in Thai,
in Thai, then they say I'm Thai. So I'm in the middle, and the police has got a legal framework behind his thinking, so he's not wrong. It's not particularly generous, but not wrong. And the taxi driver is probably emotionally swayed by the fact that I'm speaking his language quite well, and that might give me more credit than I'm due. So I don't do self-analysis. I leave it to someone else. So leave it for Thai people in the comments to say whether my Thai is any good. Yeah. I get by. I used to say I could get myself into trouble, and now I can get myself into trouble and out of it.